Welcome to my channel. Dragged into enemy captivity, they thought she was just another broken pilot. But Captain Evelyn Shade, Mercer wasn't planning to break. She was planning to fly. From a crash in hostile territory to stealing an enemy gunship under fire, her story isn't about survival, it's about defiance. And when the sky finally opened, she made sure the world remembered her name. They dragged me through the mud like I was just another broken piece of machinery. The enemy soldiers sneered, muttered curses in a language I didn't need to understand, and shoved me past the rusted gates of the compound hidden deep in the Jura Mountains. They thought they'd caught themselves an easy prize, an American pilot, downed and disoriented, ready to spill secrets under pressure. They had no idea who I was. My name is Captain Evelyn Shade Mercer, age 34. Born and raised in Helena, Montana. Grew up chasing clouds and crop dusters before earning a degree in aerospace engineering from MIT. Dark blonde hair usually tied in a tactical knot, and eyes that don't blink when the world's on fire. For the last 8 years, I've flown AH-64E Apaches into some of the most godforsaken combat zones on Earth. My file's thick with 310 sorties, close air support, precision strike, evac under fire. I've been hit before, never taken. Until that day, we were running a recon flight, routine, or so intel claimed, along a disputed corridor where border skirmishes were flaring into something worse. I had my co-pilot, Chief Warrant Officer Miles Jensen, watching the radar while I skimmed the tree line at 30 feet, hugging terrain like a ghost. What we didn't know? The enemy had new toys. SAM batteries set up with precision, laid out using data scraped from our own flight logs. The first hit clipped our tail rotor. The second shredded the main. We spun hard, black smoke curling from the engine. Miles didn't make it. I did barely. I guided the bird into a controlled crash, bouncing through trees until we skidded into a gully and fire washed over the canopy. The next hour was a blur. Blood, smoke, pain. I dragged myself free, armed only with a sidearm and instinct. But the enemy had been waiting. Their retrieval team was already inbound. I held them off for 10 minutes. That's all I had in me. They surrounded me, rifles raised, barking commands. I didn't resist, not because I was done, but because I knew I'd get another chance. They didn't see a threat, just a captive. The compound was run by a man named Colonel Vladek Ruzanov, an old-school psychological warfare specialist with a PhD in human behavior and a resume full of disappeared names. He'd broken hardened Delta boys, made pilots weep with just a voice and a file folder. His game was slow unraveling. No blood, not right away. Just heat, cold, isolation, disorientation, and questions repeated until your soul cracked. Just another flyer, he said when they threw me into his cell block. We'll wring her dry, then trade her for concessions. I gave him name, rank, and serial. Nothing more. Every second he stared, I watched him back. I studied the layout of the walls, counted the steps of every guard, traced the wires that fed the lights above me. I wasn't breaking. I was planning. And as I sat there, wrists chained to a cold steel pipe, I made myself a promise. You're going to fly again, Mercer. You're not done until you've stolen the sky. 3 days into captivity, I knew the rhythms of that place better than some of the guards. Ruzanov's compound operated with military precision. Patrols rotated every 4 hours. Refueling happened at dusk. And near me, 24 Hind gunships ran daily sweeps out to the southern ridgeline before looping back at exactly 1940. I listened, counted, waited. They kept me locked in a steel and concrete cell with no windows, just a rusting vent overhead and a drain in the floor. The door had a warped hinge that creaked at 4 o'clock sharp when the shift changed. That gave me a 12-second window of inattention. I used it to test what I could, weak points, bolts, patterns. I wasn't strong enough to brute force anything, but I didn't need strength. I had knowledge. See, flying helicopters isn't just yanking sticks and firing missiles. It's systems, mechanics, instinct. You know how a machine breathes. You feel it. And in that cell, I turned those skills toward the prison around me. They thought I was recovering from trauma, that I was dazed from the crash, mourning my dead co-pilot. I let them think that. Let them believe my silence was broken spirit. I wasn't silent. I was studying. Every guard had a routine. Some tapped their boots while bored. One always stopped near the camera blind spot to sneak a smoke. I filed it all away. On the fourth morning, I overheard something in the mess hall while being dragged past. Two prisoners planning an escape. Americans. Special forces, from what I caught in their tone. One of them had a voice like he used to give orders in his sleep. Sergeant Major Beckett. That was his name. That night, he found me during cleaning detail. Mercer, right? He whispered, keeping his mop moving. I nodded. We've got a break planned. Tonight. Dusk. You want in? I studied him. He was serious. Older. Seasoned. Eyes sharp despite the bruises. I wanted to say yes. But I also knew what they didn't. That hind patrol you've seen every night? I whispered. They're flying the same pattern. If you run, you'll have maybe 6 hours before they cut you down in the woods. That gunship's thermal and armed. You'll never outrun it. He frowned. Then what do you suggest, Captain? I met his gaze. We don't run, I said. We fly. He laughed, then stopped. Something in my face told him I wasn't joking. You serious? 3 nights I've tracked that Me, 24. It lands just east of the main yard for debrief and refuel. Minimal guard. I've studied the bird. It's functional. Old, but solid. I can fly it. You've flown a hind? No. But I've flown Apaches in combat for almost a decade. Same flight principles. I can make it work. Beckett stared at me like he wasn't sure whether I was crazy or brilliant. But he didn't walk away. You got a plan? Yeah, I said quietly. But we'll need perfect timing. And nerves of steel. He smiled faintly. Well, Shade, he said, using my call sign like it meant something again. You've got mine. We worked in silence. No paper. No maps. Just quiet. Fragmented whispers passed between cells and cleaning rotations. Beckett gathered 6 others, Americans, a few Brits, 1 German. All former Tier 1 operators. Hardened. Efficient. Desperate. I was the only pilot. They'd planned to ambush the guards during the evening turnover, slip into the outer woods, and head west. The usual kind of breakout. But those never worked. Not here. Too many patrols, too many dogs, and that hind patrolling the skies like a reaper. That's where I came in. The hind landed every night around 1940. 2 crew. Sometimes 3. They'd shut it down for 20 minutes to refuel and run a post-flight brief with command. That was our window. Beckett's team would hit the outer yard, create a distraction, and pull defenders east. I'd sneak to the bird, neutralize the crew, and take the stick. Risky, didn't even cover it. But better than marching to certain death in the woods. You're sure you can fly it? Beckett asked again on the eve of the breakout. Not sure, I admitted. But I understand the systems. Russian or American, rotor lift is rotor lift. Instruments change. Physics doesn't. He stared at me, then cracked a grin. You're a lunatic. I'm a pilot, I said. When 1935 rolled around, I was in position behind the vehicle shed, dressed in a stolen uniform that I'd bartered for with a guard's smuggled cigarettes. Beckett's crew launched their feint. Explosives they'd hidden in a fuel drum detonated near the barracks. Sirens blared. Guards scrambled, just like we'd hoped. Through the smoke, I saw the hind descend. Huge, loud, ugly as hell. Beautiful to me. I moved fast, crossing the yard low, avoiding spotlights. The crew was already on the ground, chatting near the refueling post. They had their helmets off. One was smoking. I didn't hesitate. 2 clean takedowns with a scavenged silenced sidearm. The third reached for his radio. I took him down with a wrench I'd stolen from the maintenance bay 2 nights earlier. I climbed into the cockpit, heart hammering. Russian gauges. Cyrillic labels. Unfamiliar switches. Still, the layout was logical. My engineering background snapped into place. Fuel pumps, throttle controls, rotor engagement, muscle memory kicked in. I hit the ignition. The turbines whined to life. Beckett's voice crackled on the stolen radio. Shade, we're inbound. Yard is crawling with hostiles. Bird's hot. I answered, hands flying over the unfamiliar console. 2 minutes, maybe less. I can't hold this pad forever. Gunfire erupted near the main gate. The Americans had made it through the breach point. I saw them sprinting across the tarmac, ducking fire. Doors open, I shouted. Move. That hind was about to become ours. Or it was going to explode around us. Either way, we weren't running anymore. We were flying. Beckett was first aboard, hauling a wounded comrade behind him. Then the others tumbled in, bloodied, breathless, but alive. The rear doors slammed shut just as tracer fires stitched the air behind them. Injured. I called back. 2 hit, Beckett shouted. 1 bad. Doesn't matter. Get us up. I throttled hard, praying I'd read the systems right. The hind bucked once. Then the rotors took, dragging us skyward with a mechanical groan like an old bear rising from sleep. We cleared the yard as gunfire erupted below. Spotlights whipped toward us, blind but angry. Someone launched a surface-to-air missile. Too late. I'd already dipped below the trees, flying nap of the earth like I'd done in Helmand Province 10 years ago. The hind was sluggish, heavier than an Apache, but stable. She wanted altitude. I gave her terrain. Beckett leaned forward, gripping the cockpit frame. You really have done this before. I kept my eyes on the treeline. You don't log 2,000 flight hours over war zones and forget how to dance. The cabin rattled as we skimmed a ridge. I adjusted pitch, banking hard west, following a riverbed I'd memorized from terrain briefings and what little the enemy hadn't scrambled on their local GPS. I recognized it from overhead footage. And I knew, if we reached that bend near the old quarry, we could bounce a signal off an old relay tower. One chance to make contact. Radio's up, Beckett said. What do I say? Use NATO emergency protocol. Code word Obsidian. They'll know. He stared. Why that word? It's what I used when I called in my last rescue. Thought it might come full circle. The trees opened ahead, revealing the bend I'd hoped for. I rose slightly, giving us elevation. Beckett hit the mic. This is Major Beckett, U.S. Army. Confirming Obsidian. Repeat, Obsidian. We are in enemy aircraft, 12 friendly souls aboard, requesting immediate extraction and identification override. Silence. Then, Roger, Obsidian. Identify aircraft. Beckett looked at me. I keyed in. This is Captain Evelyn Mercer, U.S. Army Aviation. We're in a captured Me-24 Hind, outbound from hostile territory, headed west at Treetop. Request friend or foe recognition and safe corridor. Another pause. Then, Shade, a voice said, stunned. Is that you? Still flying? I said. Clear our skies. We're coming home. Behind me, I heard someone sob. The hind wasn't pretty. She smelled like oil and smoke. But in that moment, she was freedom. And for the first time since my bird went down, I was flying again. We were 30 minutes into hostile territory and 25 miles from the border. The hind was holding together, but barely. She trembled on climbs, her main rotor making a whining noise I didn't like. Still, I kept her low, fast, and unpredictable, terrain masking, hugging ridges, threading valleys like I'd been born in the cockpit. But I wasn't planning to just flee. I had unfinished business. We're about 6 out from that prison, right? I asked Beckett, who was watching the wounded in the back. Closer to 4, if we cut south. Why? I met his eyes through the cockpit mirror. We're going back. He blinked. Excuse me. They used this helicopter to capture, torture, and kill. They used it to hunt our own. I'm going to show them what that feels like. He didn't argue, just turned and shouted for everyone to hold tight. I banked hard, turning the hind's nose back toward the facility we'd escaped from barely half an hour ago. If we were going to go down anyway, it wouldn't be running. Ruzanov's voice came over the open channel a few minutes later. Calm, cold, confused. Unidentified aircraft. This is Colonel Vladek Ruzanov. You are violating restricted airspace. Respond or be fired upon. I keyed the mic. Hello, Colonel. This is Captain Evelyn Mercer, U.S. Army Aviation. You remember me. I'm the one you called another broken pilot. A pause. Impossible. No, sir. Just improbable. The compound came into view, nestled like a viper's nest in the mountain bowl. I could see their towers, their spotlights, their radar arrays. And I aimed right at them. I didn't waste time. I'd studied that layout from my cell. Knew where they stored fuel, where their comms relays stood, where their barracks were weak. The hind roared in low. I armed her rockets. Beckett braced himself against the bulkhead, yelling, You really want to do this? Oh, I'm not trying to hit everything, I said. Just the important parts. The first salvo took out the antennae arrays. Comms gone. The second clipped the south tower, scattering guards like ants. The third ignited the fuel depot in a rolling fireball that lit the valley. I never targeted the cells. There were still prisoners in there. But I made sure every operational element of that camp was turned to ash. They'd taken pilots before. That place would never take another. Message sent. I muttered, banking away as tracer fire laced the sky behind us. Beckett was grinning now, eyes wild. You're insane. I smiled. Yeah, but I'm the kind of insane that flies. The fire behind us painted the sky orange as we fled, but I didn't look back. I focused on the instrument panel, every rattle of the controls, every hiccup in the pitch. The Hind was aging, cranky, and never meant to fly this low for this long. But I kept her alive through instinct and resolve. 30 clicks to the line. Beckett called from the back. They'll be throwing everything at us now. He wasn't wrong. Enemy chatter was lighting up on open bands. Scrambled fast movers. Gunships. Ground units tracking us by infrared. I listened carefully, deciphering call signs and orders. Their entire southern sector was hunting us now. I smiled grimly. Let them come. We were cutting through the Klesnik Gorge, tight walls, narrow river below, sharp turns every few seconds. Perfect place to hide from radar. Or crash. It was all down to skill now. And I was exactly where I belonged. Altitude steady at 40 feet, I said, barely audible over the roar. Tail pitch holding. We've got maybe 10 more minutes of this canyon before we hit the crossing zone. You think they'll have air support waiting? Beckett asked. I'm counting on it, I replied. Just then, the Hind shuddered violently. The engine coughed. Once, twice. The sound was unmistakable. A bird strike. Something had hit the intake. My stomach clenched as alarms flashed red. Rotor RPM fluctuated. The bird dipped, and I had to fight her, coax her back up, easing the stick like I was threading a needle with a sledgehammer. I've got partial control, I hissed. We're losing hydraulic pressure on the tail. Do we bail? Beckett asked, already helping the injured to rig parachutes. Not unless I say so, I snapped. We're over Hard Rock. Bail here, and we're bones on a cliff. I knew this terrain. I knew this machine. It wasn't over. 1 mile out from the crossing point, the radio came alive. Unidentified helicopter. This is NATO Combat Air Patrol Delta 7. You are in weapons range. Identify or be engaged. Beckett jumped to the mic. NATO CAP. This is Major Beckett. U.S. Army. Confirming friendly force. We are aboard a captured enemy Hind. Call sign Shade. I repeat, Shade is at the controls. We are bringing home 12 American and Allied personnel. There was a long pause. Then Shade? Say again. This is CAP Delta 7. Did you say Shade is flying that bird? I took the mic. My voice was ragged but firm. Confirmed. Evelyn Mercer. Shade. Still flying. I've got wounded and I need a corridor. Right now. Another pause. Then a different voice. Female, authoritative. Shade. This is Air Control 1. Stand by for corridor clearance. We are tracking you. Friendlies inbound. We've got you, Captain. The relief in the cabin was palpable. Beckett sank to the floor, exhaling hard. You actually pulled it off. I smiled thinly, keeping one hand on the throttle, the other on the yaw control. Not yet, I said. We still need to land. 2 F-35s streaked into view ahead of us, sleek, silent, bristling with power. They didn't lock on. They formed up. Captain Mercer, came the voice in my headset. You're under escort. Stay on current heading. You're almost home. The Hind shook again, engine protesting every mile. I felt the tail yaw slipping more with each bend. She was losing balance. Fast. I eased her lower, barely skimming the river. 3 minutes to base, the F-35 pilot said. Field med teams standing by. Behind me, I heard one of the wounded groan. You hang on, I said aloud, mostly to myself. You didn't survive that hellhole just to die this close. The radio crackled. Shade, this is command. I just want to say, we never forgot you. I didn't answer. I was too focused on keeping this bird in the air. The clearing came into view. An emergency LZ carved into a mountainside outpost near the border. Floodlights flared. Medics rushed forward like a wave. I fought the stick with both hands. The Hind was shaking apart, warning panels flashing like a Christmas tree. Brace, I shouted. No flaring, we're going in hard. The wheels hit dirt with a bone-rattling thud. The rear skids buckled, but we didn't tip. Doors flew open. Medics flooded in. Beckett climbed out last, helping the injured one by one. His boots hit solid ground. Mine stayed in the cockpit. I sat there a moment, hands frozen on the controls. Only when the engines whined down did I breathe. I'd made it. We had made it. I was pulled into a tent, handed water, wrapped in a blanket. A general I didn't know sat across from me, his hands shaking slightly. "You just rewrote the book on escape and evasion, Captain," he said. I didn't reply. He asked for a statement. I gave him the facts: loss of aircraft, capture, assessment of enemy weaknesses, escape plan, seizure of the Hind, and the strike on the compound. He asked why I went back to destroy it. I looked him in the eye. Because no one else ever should. He nodded slowly, then said, "You're going home." I blinked. Home. After everything, the word barely meant anything. But I nodded. Because it was enough, for now. 6 weeks later, I stood on the tarmac at Fort Douglas, back in the States. Same flight suit. New nameplate. Major Evelyn Mercer. And a medal I didn't ask for. They wanted me to speak at a ceremony. I declined. What could I say that wouldn't sound like a movie script? Instead, I asked for one thing: an assignment with Sear School. Survival. Evasion. Resistance. Escape. I wanted to teach. Not tactics. Mindset. Because someday, someone else will be chained to a wall, bleeding, forgotten. And they'll need to remember: pilots don't surrender. We just wait for the sky to open again. And when it does, we fly.